Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned on the fasten seatbelt sign. If you haven't already done so, please make sure the volume of this podcast is set perfectly to your listening enjoyment. Please take your seat, whether that's on the treadmill, car, sofa, or bed, and buckle in for the last trip. My name is Jamie Beebe, and I'll be your tour guide, recreating someone's last days in paradise. On behalf of myself and everyone behind the scenes, please enjoy the Last Trip podcast. And because nobody likes a long flight to get to where they want to be, let's prepare for takeoff. The case of Barbara Jean Monaco is a mystery that time cannot erase. On August 20th, 1978, Barbara Jean hit the road with her sister and two friends. Their destination? Virginia Beach. A sunny getaway to celebrate Barbara Jean's milestone 18th birthday. The trio checked into the Aloha motel, ready for a week of fun and freedom. But that celebration took a dark turn. When Barbara Jean left the motel to meet up with a bartender she'd planned a date with, she vanished without a trace. She never made it to her date and hasn't been seen since. Over 4 decades have passed. Witnesses have come forward, suspects have been questioned, and theories have swirled. Yet the question lingers. What happened to Barbara Jean Monaco? Let's unravel the threads of this haunting mystery. For a group of young girls looking to party in Virginia Beach in 1978, the scene would have been exciting, vibrant, and full of opportunities for fun, with just a touch of unpredictability. The beaches were the main attraction, bustling with young people soaking up the sun, playing volleyball, drinking, dancing, and meeting lots of new friends. Daytime activities often revolved around the ocean, with groups gathering to enjoy picnics, music from portable radios, and casual conversation with fellow tourists. Bikini fashion reflected the bold, fun, and slightly rebellious trends of the late 1970s, combining a mix of sporty practicality and glamorous flair, making it perfect for lounging in the sand or splashing in the waves. They were mostly high-waisted bottoms and string bikini tops, with colors like neon orange, hot pink, and of course, electric blue. Denim shorts and tied crop tops were popular for walking the boardwalk after hitting the beach. And feathered layers or natural curls were all the rage. Virginia Beach's nightlife catered to a young crowd, particularly in the summer. Bars and clubs around the boardwalk and oceanfront often featured live bands, dance floors, and drink specials. The summer of 1978 saw a mix of disco fever, rock anthems, and soulful ballads because of the diverse tastes of the times. Grease from Frankie Valli was at the top of the charts. Also, Miss You by the Rolling Stones and 3 Times a Lady by the Commodores. They were likely listening to artists like Fleetwood Mac, the Eagles, and Steely Dan for the ultimate mellow beach vibe. The Bee Gees and Donna Summer were definitely on the soundtrack for the trip. Fake IDs were not uncommon among underage teens looking to get into the bars, as the drinking age in Virginia at the time was 18 for beer and wine. This made bars and clubs especially appealing to the newly minted 18-year-olds like Barbara Jean. The boardwalk was a hot spot for socializing. It was easy to meet people just by walking along the strip, playing arcade games, or hanging out near live music performances. One of the most popular motels at the time was the Aloha motel, where the group was staying, always filled and ready for a communal party atmosphere. It was a mid-century, family-owned motel, and as the name suggests, it had a Hawaiian theme with decor like tiki statues, palm motifs, and brightly colored signs. It was within walking distance to the beach and right near the boardwalk, so there was easy access to restaurants, bars, arcades, and all the other attractions. In 1978, the Aloha Motel was a snapshot of the era, a place full of energy where people from all walks of life converged to enjoy Virginia Beach. And while the atmosphere was fun and carefree, it wasn't without risks, as the Monacos soon found out. Young women, especially traveling without older supervision, often faced unwanted attention or were targeted by those looking to take advantage of them. Hitchhiking was much more common and socially acceptable in the 1970s, but posed significant dangers. Today, things have changed. While the vibe is still lively, the experience is shaped by safety measures, trends, and technology. The beach is still the main attraction, but rather than making new friends, people are more worried about making a new Instagram post. The boardwalk is still the place to hang out, but it's polished and modernized, lined with trendy cafes, ice cream shops, souvenir shops, and street performers. And instead of roller skates and bicycles, kids whiz by on electric scooters. The drinking age has changed to 21, although many venues still cater to the under 21 crowd with mocktails, live music, and dance nights. Uber and Lyft have replaced hitchhiking for safe and reliable transportation, and girls' trips usually end up at bougie Airbnbs rather than a retro motel. If Barbara Jean went to Virginia Beach today, the sense of freedom would remain the same, but today's technology, increased security, and a wider range of activities would make it a more structured and secure destination to celebrate and have fun.
Hey there, true crime aficionados. Looking for a podcast that's as twisted as it is hilarious?
Well, you've stumbled upon the perfect place. Welcome to Luminal on the Wall, or as we like to call it, Lotwa. I'm Becky, the sunshine to your day.
And I'm Bevy, the moonlight to your darkness. Together, we're the sisters you never knew you needed, bringing you true crime like you've never heard before.
Picture this. Two sisters, complete opposites.
Yeah, she's all sunshine and kindness, while I'm the queen of sarcasm and sass.
But that's what makes our sister chat so relatable. We're like the sun and the moon, lighting up your true crime journey with laughter and irreverence.
That's right. We dive into the darkest corners of humanity, but we don't just stop at the gore and the controversies. Oh no. We're here to roast the characters, each other, and sometimes even ourselves.
We laugh hysterically at our own jokes.
And we swear like sailors while we're at it, so if you're easily offended, consider this your warning.
But if you're ready for a wild ride through the twisted minds of murderers, join us on Lotwa. We'll cope with the horrific nature of our content the only way that we know how. That is with a healthy, or maybe excessive dose of sarcasm, wit, and a touch of crass humor.
So what are you waiting for? Hit that follow button and join our sisterhood as we navigate the murky waters of true crime together. We promise you won't regret it.
Barbara Jean was born on August 19, 1960, in New Haven, Connecticut, to Joseph and Pauline Monaco. She was the youngest of three, with older sisters Joanne and Teresa. She was raised in Derby, Connecticut, and a member of Derby High School, graduating in the class of 1978. Growing up, she was popular, fun-loving, and had lots of friends. There were sleepovers, she went to bonfires, pep rallies, and was really into gymnastics. During her senior year in high school, Barbara Jean was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome and was very sick. Guillain-Barré syndrome is a rare condition where the body's immune system mistakenly attacks the nerves. This can cause weakness, tingling, and sometimes even paralysis. It often starts with strange sensations, like pins and needles in your hands and feet. The weakness can spread and get worse over days or weeks. In severe cases, it can affect the muscles used for breathing, which can be life-threatening. Barbara Jean had a very severe case. She was so sick that she was in the intensive care unit of the hospital and even on a respirator for a while. But eventually, her health rebounded. It often happens after an infection like the flu or food poisoning, but doctors aren't exactly sure why it occurs. But just like Barbara Jean, the good news is that most people recover, although it can take weeks, months, or even longer, with treatments like physical therapy and immune therapies to help the body heal. Barbara Jean went missing just a few days after her 18th birthday, so she didn't really get a chance to live much. She had her whole life ahead of her, and because of her disappearance, and likely her death, no one will ever know all the wonderful things she could have accomplished. Her family will never know who she would have become, and they've also never been able to have the closure of knowing exactly what happened to her. So they're in kind of a limbo between grieving the woman they knew and the woman she could have been. Let's cover what we know about the timeline in this case. Barbara Jean had just celebrated her 18th birthday, and after being so sick the previous year, her sister Joanne decided to invite her along on her girls' trip to Virginia Beach, Virginia, for a week-long vacation of fun in the sun. Barbara Jean was really excited to go. Her other sister, Teresa, even gave her some spending money so she'd have nothing to worry about. On August 20th, 1978, the girls left Derby, Connecticut. They were 4 young girls on their first trip together. They listened to music, talked about boys and life during the 7.5-hour drive to Virginia Beach. They arrived in the early afternoon and checked into the old Aloha motel on Pacific Avenue and 15th Street, right in the middle of all the action. The beach was right around the corner, and they were surrounded by all the most popular nightclubs and bars on the boardwalk. The first couple of days were great. They hit the sand during the day and the clubs at night. One of the clubs they spent time in was Peabody's nightclub, which is actually still there today. On the 21st, Barbara Jean and her sister met 2 bartenders that they were quite smitten with. The bartenders invited the sisters to hang out at a friend's house after their shift, and the party continued. The next day, the bartenders walked Barbara Jean and her sister back to the hotel. They had a great time, and Barbara Jean was really into the bartender, so she decided to keep in touch with him and definitely wanted to see him again before the week was over. On August 22nd, they went to the beach and hit a few bars. The one they ended up at that evening was the Country Comfort Bar on Pacific Avenue. A group of young girls is sure to grab some attention. And that night, Barbara was getting some extra attention from a man who kept trying to get her to hang out with him away from the group. He told her he had a yacht as an incentive, but Barbara Jean just wasn't interested. She still had eyes for the bartender from the night before. Around 10:30, Barbara Jean and Joanne went back to their hotel because after being out all night and partying all day, they needed to get a little extra sleep if they were going to be able to keep it going for the whole week. But Barbara Jean just couldn't stop thinking about the bartender from Peabody's and decided that she was going to walk over to the bar and meet up with him again. No one thought much of her walking there by herself because it was only about 6 blocks down the road, still fairly early at night, and the streets were packed with tourists enjoying their vacation. So after getting ready, Barbara Jean went to meet the bartender around closing time when his shift would be over. She left the hotel on foot to walk the 6 blocks. But that's when the girls' trip took a dark turn, because somewhere along Pacific Avenue, Barbara Jean vanished and was never seen again. When the girls woke up the next morning and realized Barbara Jean had never returned, they were mad at her for not calling and letting them know. But they figured she was young, and this was her first major adventure away from home, so they couldn't be that mad. When she still hadn't returned to the hotel by the afternoon, their anger changed to worry. It was not like her to not come back all day. They went to find the bartender that she met up with to put their minds at ease. When they found him, he told them she never arrived to meet him the night before. And that's when they knew something was very wrong. The girls called Barbara Jean's parents and told them she was missing. They carried a photo of her to all the bars in town and asked everyone if they'd seen her, but no one had. After a few hours, they went to the police to report Barbara Jean missing, but police refused to take a report until she had been missing for 48 hours. And that was a pretty normal response for a missing 18-year-old on vacation in 1978. But it could be one reason this case has never been solved. We all know that the first 48 hours are the most crucial in a missing persons investigation. And those 48 hours felt like forever to Joanne and the other girls as they canvassed the town looking for Barbara Jean. Their parents, Joseph and Pauline, were already making the drive to Virginia Beach to help in the search. When they got there, they went to the police, but still had to wait 48 hours. Finally, police took the report and started the search. They found several witnesses that said they saw Barbara Jean get into a station wagon with 4 to 5 guys that night while walking down Pacific Avenue. After some further questioning, police believed the men in the station wagon were a few of the local guys they already had on their radar. One was a man named James Jimbo Moore. It was someone that Barbara Jean had actually met earlier in her trip. He was the same man from the Country Comfort Bar that wanted her to go on his yacht the night she went missing. But there were no solid clues, and all they came up with in the search for Barbara Jean were dead ends, meaning the Monaco family had to go home without her. Her sister's wedding was just 2 weeks away, and they decided to go forward with it because they knew if Barbara Jean was out there, she wouldn't miss it. But when she didn't show up, they knew something had happened to her. They were so desperate to find Barbara Jean, they even reached out to several psychics who came up with various search areas to look into, and they hired a private investigator. But still, nothing materialized, and they were no closer to finding her than they were on day one. The Virginia Beach Police Department even theorized that Barbara Jean joined a local cult, but that was also a dead end. After about 8 months of searching, at their wits' end, the family advertised a $10,000 reward for her recovery, dead or alive. And that's when the Monacos got a call from an informant that went by the name Condor. He sent a handwritten note to the family that said, "No police. I demand to remain anonymous. If you will not play my way, there is no deal." So Barbara Jean's father wore a bulletproof vest and met Condor at a hotel lobby carrying a briefcase with $10,000 in cash. The FBI and police staked out the lobby, and when Condor arrived, he was taken into custody. Condor turned out to be Kerry Copeland, one of the local men that police initially investigated in Barbara Jean's disappearance. This is when he told police that Barbara Jean was abducted by 4 men and murdered. He said it was a group of local guys who drove her to a cottage near Oceana, where they raped and strangled her. Then they tied her to a cinder block and dumped her body in a nearby lake. When authorities dragged the lake, they found a cinder block with a rope tied to it, but they didn't find Barbara Jean's remains. Condor named the 4 men he said were involved, and one of them was Jimbo Moore, the man from the Country Comfort. When police questioned the men, they denied everything, and there was no physical evidence to pin it on them. Kerry Copeland even passed a polygraph test, proving that the story he was telling was truthful. But prosecutors declined to offer him immunity in return for his testimony because they thought he was involved in the killing. So they let him go. And that was a big mistake, because from there, the case went completely cold. Then, in 2001, Jimbo Moore resurfaced with cold case detectives, and he admitted he was with Barbara Jean the night she died, and gave police details about her clothing that had never been released to the public. He said they went out on a boat that night, but he denied killing her. They knew they finally had him. Then, they made another crucial mistake in the investigation. They let him go home because he promised to come back and tell the detectives everything he knew. He went home and ran a hose from the exhaust pipe on his truck to the cab. He died on the eve of the 23rd anniversary of Barbara Jean's death. I can imagine it was eating him alive all those years, and he just couldn't take it anymore. But her family deserved to know what happened and find her body. Kerry Copeland later died of cancer, without ever being brought to justice in his alleged role in Barbara Jean's murder. The 2 other men, they're still out there. One moved to California, and the other continues to reside in Virginia. They've both kept silent for 46 years. And the only way we may find Barbara Jean is if one or both decide to come forward and tell the truth. On the 25th anniversary of Barbara Jean's disappearance, her family finally held a memorial for her to put her to rest and get some kind of closure. But the closure they really wanted was to bury her body, and they weren't giving up. Barbara Jean's family knows she's dead, and likely died the night she disappeared. The people who murdered her were never brought to justice, and 2 of them are still walking around like nothing happened. They took a beautiful young life, and so far, they've gotten away with it. Virginia Beach police haven't made any arrests, largely because Barbara Jean's body has never been found. They can't win a trial without enough physical evidence. There is still time, and the Monaco family holds out hope that justice will prevail, especially because they believe Barbara Jean's body was put in the lake, resurfaced, and then buried near a pond. In recent years, Virginia Beach police asked for the female family member's DNA because they are still looking for her and have not given up. Police have combed the area in hopes of finding her remains, but so far, they've found nothing. Still, the investigation continues. Virginia Beach has always been a generally safe destination for tourists. The 1978 attitudes towards personal safety were more relaxed, and there was less awareness of dangers like abductions or predatory behavior compared to today. For young tourists, especially groups of women, the mix of freedom, nightlife, and relaxed safety measures could lead to situations where caution was necessary. The era's "it won't happen to me" mindset often left travelers unprepared for potential risks. With technology and social media, we're much more prepared for safety risks today. If you're traveling, use technology to your advantage to stay as safe as possible. Google Maps is great for reliable navigation to avoid getting lost. You can save key locations like your hotel, parking spots, and emergency services in the app. Also, you can download maps and emergency contacts before your trip for offline access. Sharing your real-time location is really important while you're traveling and can get you help the second you're in trouble. Also, there's all kinds of smart jewelry you can get that will discreetly send an SOS alert to emergency contacts or authorities if you're in trouble. This is helpful if you don't have your phone or your phone is stolen from you. Even an Apple Watch has the emergency SOS feature to contact 911 and notify your emergency contacts. InvisiWare is a smart jewelry with a hidden button on the back. Once it's clicked, a text message with your location is sent to your emergency contacts, and they'll notify the authorities. There are also personal safety alarms. Compact devices like Birdie emit a loud alarm to deter threats and draw attention. It works a lot better than a whistle. There are rideshare apps like Uber or Lyft to avoid walking alone at night. Just be sure to double-check the driver and car details before entering. And there are so many cool gadgets out there that use technology to keep you safe. Here are a few of my favorites. Saber's Smart Pepper Spray has Bluetooth connectivity, so it alerts your emergency contacts with your location when it's used. Be Safe is a personal safety app with voice activation, live audio, and streaming with recording location, fake call, follow me, timer alarm, and more. The Noonlight app connects you directly to emergency services with the tap of a button and shares your GPS location. Walk Safe highlights high-crime areas on a map, lets you set check-in points, and notifies trusted contacts if you don't arrive at your destination. One Scream activates an SOS alert when the app detects a scream, sending your location to preset emergency contacts. Just don't forget a mobile charger while you're traveling, so you can stay connected. Of course, the good old-fashioned ways to stay safe are always a good rule of thumb. Don't get in a car with someone you don't know. Watch your drinks when you go out, and don't drink too much. Stay in well-populated areas. Don't bring your valuables with you when you travel, and stick with your group if you're traveling together. But most of all, make sure that no matter where you're traveling, you inform someone about your plans before going anywhere. Tell someone reliable where you're going, what you'll be doing, and when to expect you back. And my number one tip to staying alive on vacation is to pay attention to your gut. If something doesn't feel right, it isn't. Barbara Jean Monaco was 18 years old when she vanished on Pacific Avenue in Virginia Beach, Virginia. She was walking to Peabody's Bar around 1 a.m. on August 23, 1978, when witnesses said she got into a car and was never seen again. She was white, 5 feet 4 inches tall, 110 pounds, had brown shoulder-length hair and brown eyes. She was wearing a yellow long-sleeve shirt, blue jeans, a brown belt, and wooden clogs. She had been diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, had a hairline fracture to her left arm when she was 10 to 12 years old, and is blind in one eye. If she was alive today, she would be 64 years old. There's no statute of limitations on murder. Someone knows who killed Barbara Jean, probably several someones. If you have any information about what happened, please call the Cold Case Homicide Unit in Virginia Beach at 757-385-4241 or email cchu@bvgov.com. And if one of Barbara Jean's killers is listening to this podcast, do the right thing and come forward. Let her family bury her body and get the peace of mind and closure they deserve. And finally, remember to leave a review and rate this podcast 5 stars if you like the show, or hell, even if you don't. But either way, feel free to let me know what you think. Please follow The Last Trip on Instagram at The Last Trip Crime Pod and subscribe on Patreon to support the show. You'll get extra research, videos, photos, and updates, and even learn more about my personal travels. That's patreon.com/thelasttrippodcast. I'm Jamie Beebe, bringing you your last trip and signing off until the next one. Thanks for listening.